time we begin our March 17th, 4 p.m. meeting. This time we'll call ourselves to order. And Larry, we'll turn it over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of City Council. I believe Bridget's handed out a form that I'd invite you to use to prioritize initiatives or services that you hear about today and those that you may have heard about 2 weeks ago. I do appreciate your feedback. This afternoon's session is a continuation of the March 3rd presentation series. As a brief recap of the March 3rd session, there were two theme presentations. The first was facilities, which indicated that existing centers are being used adequately, and that the city should improve the alignment of programs with interest and demand. We should adjust or eliminate programs lacking adequate following. And third, we should develop facilities supporting clusters of neighborhoods. The second theme is a branding initiative that can energize our team, build a cohesive message content, and help unify our efforts to develop a message that, or identity that distinguishes ourselves. From the three SWOT presentations, my takeaways were for HR, human resources, that compensation in the form of pay and benefits is and will increasingly affect our organization. Finance felt the impact of technology and policy obsolescence. And fire has staffing shortfalls and feels the effects of inadequate compensation. This structure that you saw or heard on March 3rd involved two types of presentations: theme or non-SWOT in nature, and then SWOT or strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The theme presentations focuses on challenges across departments or across the community, and the SWOT assessment presentations gives you more of a department level perspective. This slide gives you an overview of the remaining presentations and dates and topics. Today, there are three theme presentations and a few department SWOTs programmed for this afternoon. Among them include employee retention strategies, master plan implementation, and industry recruitment, acquisition, and airport as a catalyst. And they will migrate into the department SWOT presentations. April 7th, we hope to tee up for you deferred maintenance and staffing challenges as two theme presentations, theme-based presentations. And then hopefully we'll try to wrap up the SWOT presentations on April 7th. However, if we have not finished those, I'd like to ask the board to consider setting a workshop date for the 21st. Today's presentation will be will be led by Deborah Reed, who will give us a presentation on employee retention strategies, and she'll lead this off for us. Following her will be Lisa Steiwinter on master plan implementation, and then Chris and Peter will give us some insights on the economic development theme. So at this time, I'd like to invite Deborah to the podium.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. I greatly appreciate you giving me an opportunity to stand before you this afternoon to talk a little bit about our employee retention strategies, and to also thank you for providing our employees with the 3% increase. They seem to appreciate that. I just want to make mention as we go through. The agenda that we will follow this afternoon is the employee turnover, reasons employees leave, strategies for employees retention, peer competitors of personnel, performance-based merit program, pay for performance, and classification and compensation study. We have an annual employee turnover rate. I went back for the 5 years from 2010 up to 2014. The second line shows our full-time employees and the total number that we had during that time. And then I have the number of employees that left the city and then the turnover rate for the city for the annual year. The above numbers are calendar, and a turnover is due for many different reasons. That's retirement, better opportunities, different career choices, better salary, reduced cost and insurance, could not get along with the supervisor, performance issues, working with less and required to do more, which affects life balance. And the economy was good, so a lot of employees decided they would make a move at that time, and some of it was involuntary termination. The local rate for turnover is 8.2, and this was found across industry lines, and also for region it was 15.6%, and that was found through the Bureau of National Affairs in Washington, D.C. The annual turnover rate for the South region, the Southeastern region, is 22%. That was a survey done by Ned Scott survey. It was about 3,000 participants in the survey. And then the government industry was 15% based on about 1,800 participants in the survey. And looking at department turnover, and this is alphabetized if you look across left to right. It is alphabetized. For department turnover, I'm going to look at not so much the percentage, because sometimes the percentage is a little tricky, because some of the smaller departments, when they lose someone, the percentage looks really high. But if you look at 4 of our departments, and I'm going to take fire, police, energy services, and water resources. And I'm going to look at the last 3 years. When you look at the last 3 years, the fire department actually lost 14 employees. Some of them were for compensation, some of them was for benefits, performance, and competitors. But they also have to run their trucks with 4 employees instead of just the 3. So it puts an impact on the department itself. The police department, they lost 13 employees over the 3-year span. And that was due to compensation, competitors coming out to get our employees, and performance. Energy services, they lost 13. Same thing, compensation, benefits, competitors, and performance. And then water resources lost 17, one of our highest, and that also includes compensation, benefits, performance, and supervisory issues. We cannot expect turnover. We can always expect turnover from our retirees, so we should be able to plan for that. There are times when career expectations cannot be met. Some of our employees are looking for different things. And this is also due to the design of the city's classification and compensation grade table study. When the classifications change, compensation remains the same. It limits employees from growing. The city's best defense is to stay competitive with the compensation and costs of living and be consistent in how that plan is set up. The amount of increases are not so much as important as being consistent across the board. We reviewed other municipalities, and they seem to increase their employees by 1 to 3%, but they didn't ever really go down to 0, except for closer to the time period when the economy was really bad, and that was around 2011. Here's another chart. This is for Park and Recs area. Even though they're larger, they're not showing a big number in terms of increases over the 3 years. I just happen to break out the various units within the Park and Recs area. Reasons employees are leaving. If the work of an environment is not comfortable for whatever reason, the employee will not feel good about their work. Employees have to feel valued and appreciated. Money sometimes does not keep them. Employees want to do a good job and excel. When they excel, or when they can excel, this is not an acceptable level, and when you are trying to excel, you must have something to reward them in terms of the new responsibilities that they're taking on. Employees want to be better tomorrow than they are today. Employees want opportunities to grow and learn and advance in their careers and to work on challenging and interesting projects. Employees want to feel a part of something that adds value. In looking at TC2 as a consulting firm, they indicate that many of these areas are things that an organization should maintain in order to keep their employees. The main reason our employees leave is because our plan is inconsistent. We have a grade table that is competitive, but when you don't have a way to move our employees within that grade table because you don't do a merit increase, they kind of sit. And so when you're trying to hire people, you're hiring them at the midpoint, and employees are not moving, so therefore you create a compression area. So we have to make sure that our merit program is consistent and not necessarily taken away every other year.
Ma'am, ask your question. When you talk about merit, give me an example. What percentage? 1%, 2, 3?
Well, based on our merit pay program, it goes from 0 to 4%, so that's based on performance. So anytime, and I actually put a chart in your information so that you can see how we look at it, but it can go from 0 to 4% based on what an employee actually performed throughout that year. So everybody doesn't get a 4% and everybody doesn't get a 1%.
Excuse me, I ask a question. On that merit, who makes is it the immediate supervisor makes the decision who they think merits a raise?
Well, it's a performance tool that's used, and that supervisor is responsible for filling out the performance tool to determine where that person averaged so that they can select what the percentage is.
Is there any room in that scale for personalities to affect that person's raise?
Well, when you look at any type of performance tool, there is always some room for having a little personal input in there. And I think that's been over the years. Performance tools are not quote 100%, but it is a way that you can at least recognize and sort of, if someone is not performing well, we ask that they use the corrective action to show an employee where can they improve versus just saying, well, you didn't do it this way or you didn't do it that way.
Do we have a certain amount of money that's all put into that right now?
No, that's part of the problem. We haven't been funding.
How many years has it been since we've done a merit increase? It's been
Since 2008, we got a merit increase, and
That
then
wasn't a big one, was it?
no. It was a regular merit in 2008, and then all the others. In 2012, we got a 46%, where it wasn't even half of the actual merit.
Question being, in 2008, how much money was in our budget for merit increases?
I don't know if that was it 300,000, Lisa?
It wasn't a lot.
It wasn't a lot, but I know 2012, we went down to 46%, and that wasn't even coming up to half of what a merit would be. And we just did that in order to make sure that we recognize employees because it had been so long.
In other words, the compensation of our employees has been stagnant.
Yeah.
When people come in, they're making what some of the people that have been here 10 years are making.
Right, and then we try to adjust those that have been here so compression won't happen. But we shouldn't have to do that every time we hire someone. It just creates a burden.
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
In looking at your neighbors, Concord, Albemarle, Morrisville, Salisbury, where do their merit pay stand right now? Do they have money put into their program each year?
From what I recognize, most of the areas do. I don't have the survey on that particular one yet. But most of the ones that I looked at when we go through the listserv, they've actually averaged somewhere between 1% and 3%. So no one has actually stood still that I know of at this point.
Be interested to know, if you don't mind, to find out what they put in their budget each year.
Exactly.
Because that's who you compete with.
Exactly.
For your employees.
And Charlotte.
The county gave one last year, did they not? Remember? Okay,
Sure don't.
just curiosity.
I'd like to go back just a second to the question that got at what degree bias or personal bias may get into the evaluation process. Something that we do, and I've seen other organizations do, is that the management team's involved. So it's not necessarily limited to just say the first line supervisor. It goes up to the department head and comes to my desk. Second point is that for evaluations that are indicating performance above or below meets expectations, there's a narrative that's required. So just shoot from the hip saying this person walks on water, or this person's a, forgive my French, a dirt ball. They got to explain why. And if it doesn't pass muster, it's gonna, I'm gonna kick it back.
Yeah, and I think I was referring to whether you have some subjectivity in there.
I think
which
there is subjective.
you can't really control. I think that's the question I was
Yeah,
trying to
I
answer,
think-
but
But one thing too is the immediate supervisor can give them an excellent, anyway, it can be really good, their evaluation can be excellent. But once it gets over the chain, the next person says, you rated them too high, you've got to take it down some. So see, by the time it gets up to management, it's already may have been marked down at least a couple of times because the immediate supervisor says they're excellent. They walk on water. By the time it gets to the other one, and it's to fit within these guidelines of what we say we can give. Well, that's what I have seen.
well, as Larry mentioned, we do try to look at them, every last one of them, in terms of reading them. Can't measure what subjectivity goes through what, and I mean, that's been history throughout the years for any performance review. But it is a tool that we gauge to at least come close to measuring what the performance is for an employee.
So we need to be proactive rather than reactive.
Exactly.
Proactive means we're always up here with our competition. If we react,